everybody, and welcome to the 206th episode of Gaming Talk. On this episode, we are going to be looking and reading our way through the art book for Grotesque Beauty. So here we are. This is the art book for Grotesque Beauty that came with the game. Art book by Ben Ho. Going here. Little blurb down here. Booklet is documentation of the process of developing the game and a showcase of some of the artwork that led to the final visual look. I hope you'll enjoy this read. And then there's a little bit there about the artist himself. Grotesque Beauty started life, funnily enough, while I was attending a life drawing class. That day, I was trying to come up with an idea for a narrative horror game. I knew I wanted to make something that was like you were playing a Junji Ito story, but no other direction from there. Whilst in my class, a thought occurred to me. What if the story was about a cursed life drawing class? I quickly thought up a few interesting scenarios. A group of art students that hear about this rumored life drawing class that featured some grotesquely misshapen models. At the time, I dreamt up the project as something too ambitious and would be released in episodes. The first one would be the origin story of the antagonist, where a group of girls having a sleepover would be the first victims of the story's monster. The next few episodes would follow a new set of characters as they try to uncover the meaning of what's going on. I realized that the scope of the idea was too much for me to handle, so I stripped it down to just the first part, about a slumber party. Making games is so taxing that I knew it would be a mammoth amount of work. It was best to do something that was manageable for one person. Now that I had the basic plot in my head, I began sketching ideas for how the characters might look. What I'm trying to do here is find a style for the visuals. Naturally, I draw in angular fashion. I was trying to see how I could get that horror manga feeling whilst injecting my own look into it. At this stage, it was also looking to European comic artists and animators for the inspiration. One of the previous sketches stood out to me. I love painting, so I didn't need to make many excuse to add some colors and lighting to the drawing to see how it can change the visual style. This was something that could set the game's visual apart from the horror manga influences, but in the end I decided that it didn't quite capture the atmosphere I was hoping to create. The vibrant colors got in the way. I tried turning the colors off and maintaining the lighting value. It was better, reminding me of some German expressionist movie. I returned to a simpler 2D look, combining line art with flat coloring. I threw the character against a rough background to better gauge how the character might exist in the game. I liked how a lighter toned character sat against a dark backdrop, fulfilling the visual department. This image helped me form the design philosophy. You recognize the drawing on the left. You are a true horror fan. That is a sketch of Tomei after the works of Junji Ito. In the art world, we call these studies. A study is a good practice to try to understand what it is that works about the style you are studying. The drawing on the right is an attempt to try to hit that style. A couple more pictures of characters there, of course. With the visual style decided, I was able to delve more in depth with who the characters were. I knew I wanted two female characters to be visually distinct from one another. That is to say, one of them will have long hair and the other will have short hair. That is a way to make them distinct. You may recognize traces of the final version of Anita in the first few drawings. When working on my own projects, I don't tend to iterate a vast number of designs before committing to a direction. Sometimes the first drawing just works, and from then on, it can sometimes be a struggle to capture what made that first drawing special. I really like these drawings. I think I was having a good day at the time because later on I would struggle to draw Anita in different poses. In the chaos of development, I forgot about these drawings. Later on, when I looked through my old files, having already drawn the game assets for Anita, I found these and lamented how they were better drawn than the final assets in the game. I actually went back to remake some of Anita's expressions based on these sketches. Even one of these drawings became an expression for the mystery woman. Assuming that's our mystery woman there. Oh, that's Rachel. That's Rachel in the game. That's Rachel. Right? Cool. For the demo, I drew the backgrounds freehand with no 3D move to support the perspective. Above you can see the old background for Annie's bedroom. Whilst making the full game, I realized there was a lot of rooms to draw, and my process would be made quicker if I used some basic 3D models to assist in figuring out the perspective. There's the 3D version on top versus how the background actually looks in the final version. With the characters designed and one background finished, it was important for me to put them together in a production still. This would be the guiding art for the whole project. Just match this image. Something I find odd about visual novel games is how still the visuals are sometimes. I was conscious of whatever I was staring at this whenever I was staring at the same unmoving picture over and over for an extended period of time. Wanted to keep this dynamic, which is why the text box is animated. Characters move their mouth, and the backgrounds sometimes have moving texture. In the original demo, this was the titular haunted painting. After releasing the demo, this was high up on things I wanted to redesign. I wanted her to feel more enigmatic, more powerful. Pose here felt very stiff. And what the heck is she even doing posing like that? I had an idea to hide faces in the fog. That set me off trying to hide more creepy things in the background. I hope you've noticed them in the game. Here's a hint, they're in the living room. When designing Anita's personality, I wanted someone a little meek compared to the zest in Rachel. This can be reflected in her smaller range of poses and expressions looking off to the side. When writing the story, I knew there will be a point where the two characters might turn at odds with another. The conflict was something I really struggled to come up with for a long time. It had to be convincing enough to the players that they can buy into it. I knew the best way to drive a wedge between them was through Rachel's sister, Hannah. I toyed with Anita witnessing Hannah's actual abduction, her witnessing her accidental death, and at one point a satanic ritual was involved. After watching Hereditary, I was thinking along a similar path, but the influence was too obvious. All these plots became too convoluted. Eventually, I decided on the simplest story worked best. That tends to be the truth. I didn't design Hannah until well into development. Sometimes it's nice to leave a problem for later time to tackle. Keeps things fresh. Solving all of the creative decisions early in a project can take the wind out of the sails for me. By the time it came to designing Hannah, I'd already made tons of game assets, so felt like I didn't need to do much research into getting the look right. That being said, I did struggle to get her expressions right. Pose on the left is an old version, with the final version on the right. Since there was a scene where Hannah makes a plea at the player, I knew she had to be expressive to help make the decision a little bit harder for the players to make. So, left and right. Another example of how the art changed from original demo to release to the final game. I didn't even say that right. So that's the demo version of the weird guy from the art gallery, and that's how he turned out in the game. A little more shading from what I can tell. That's the dad of Rachel's dad. Anita's dad, sorry. That's Anita's dad. And some more of the expressions of Anita's dad here. Differences in the background of the living room here. The screen is a little different. Couch is a little different. Everything's a bit different here in the second picture. Spoilers ahead, if you haven't seen the antagonist reform yet, please be warned that we'll be covering that reveal from here on. I've played it. Late one night, I decided to do some quick sketches of the monster to kick things off. I ended up staying up very late drawing a whole series of drawings and paintings that followed. The monster was inspired by a host of Japanese horror creatures, like the girl from Ringu and Momo. Going into the design, I knew I wanted a few things: long black hair, a creepy wide smile, and demented eyes. Capturing these would be the challenge, but surprisingly I managed to get there quickly. That is a creepy face. Very creepy face. I like seeing the iterations of the creepy face here. Very interesting. And a couple more iterations here of that. When it came to the marketing assets, I didn't have time initially to make any new art. It was fun to use only existing assets to try to come up with something interesting. Despite the game being entirely black and white, I wanted the marketing assets to have some color. It would make it more eye-catching. Probably the one most important job for an icon. Personally, I don't really see black and white in the game. It's more grayscale, but okay. Sometime after the original demo release, I had the time to paint a unique asset for the marketing assets, which, when I work in the office, I sometimes listen to horror stories narrated on YouTube. There was one video that had a creepy thumbnail that captured my imagination. It had a dark background with a face half hidden in the shadow. I followed that direction in making my design, adding in splashes of color after the painting was done. To this day, I'm still uncertain who the girl is. Maybe you can tell me. Yeah. Pretty neat little art book. It's not too long, but I like it. I like seeing the process. But that's going to do it for this episode. So, if you like this kind of content, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.